move to our last session of the day. And I think this last session, I think all the sessions today have been very exciting. But this last session, I think, is touching on almost all of us academics, because it's about excellence in teaching and learning. And I'm very pleased to have two distinguished speakers who are going to talk to us in this next session. I'm just wanted to check on, I think I have seen the speaker, Professor Mohammed Khalil is available. Professor Mohammed Khalil, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Because of the time, and I know there's many people following, and we have promised, we learned a lot over the COVID to make this virtual webinars as short as possible, because people they're not more still that long in hours. So this is our last session for today. We are very privileged to have the two speakers. I will start immediately with the first speaker, Professor Mohammed Khalil. Professor Mohammed Khalil is a distinguished professor, clinical professor from South Carolina, but he is very exceptional academics. I have read bios and backgrounds of many academics, because in West, we are a global forum. So every time we hear about someone, we just been very excited to learn about this gentleman. But he started his academic career with veterinary medicine. He got his degree, and then he got a master's degree, and then another master's degree on veterinary medicine. Then he earned another master's degree on technology in education. And then he went and pursued a PhD in human anatomy. He is currently a clinical professor at South Carolina. But most importantly, when we are following this distinguished professor over the last many years, he's been one of the people who's been always cited excelling in teaching and quality of education. And most importantly, which is the thing which affects all of us, and I'm sure all the vice chancellor, head of departments, they would be raising their hands about student support. How do we support our students? How we excel in our teaching and the quality of teaching, and so on and so forth. Now, Professor Mohammed Khalil is being given lots of awards. I can't read all of them, but one particularly, I think, he's being given lots of awards every year by his colleague in his department and the faculty for good quality of teaching for his students, and so on in the medical school. But I think just one I want to read it. It's quite a long name. It's called Alpha Omega Alpha Robert J. Glaser Distinguished Teacher Award from the American Association of Medical Colleges. And I said to the person who told me this long time ago, if I earn this during my entire academic career, I will be very happy. It's better than many four-star publications to be distinguished as the best academic who in teaching and quality in American universities in the medical schools. So I'm going to give the floor to Professor Mohammed Khalil. He's going to talk to us about the title of his talk. I think it's all in the program, but I will just read it for you before I give him the floor. His talk is going to be about, actually we've got two speakers, as I said earlier. The first talk will be about essential components of teaching excellence in higher education. And then we will go to the second speaker, and then we'll open it for the question. I also have the privilege to have Professor Daba with me. He will also help in moderating this session and give his feedback. He's also the director of the Middle East Institute in the UK, and he will give us also very useful reflection and feedback. So Professor Khalil, the floor is yours. I think I gave you the share, and you can start.
Thank you, Dr. Allam, for the introduction. And I'm very happy today to discuss with the MENA members the essential components of teaching excellence in higher education. So before we start that, what is teaching excellence? If I can ask that question, I would like you to have an answer in his mind about what is it? What is a teaching excellence? So now, if I ask everyone to tell me about the teaching excellence, definitely we're going to have a different definitions. So why is that? Because there is no universal accepted definition for teaching excellence. And then we can ask ourselves, so why is that? Because teaching is complex, multifaceted, and it is context specific. So it means different thing in different discipline, different institution. Also, the perception of teaching excellence is different if you ask the student, if you ask the faculty, if you ask the administrator, or they're gonna look at it from different perspective. Now, also, if you think about the teaching philosophy, and here I would like just to mention that the philosophy, if you think about it, will help in identifying the role of the faculty and identifying the role of the student. So for different philosophy, then this role are going to be different. So with that, that will add to the complexity of defining excellence in teaching. So now, so how we're gonna have a definition or what the definition should focus on? So the definition should focus on teaching excellence from the perspective of teaching quality and student learning. So that's what are going to look at it from the discussion or from what I'm going to present to you. So if you think about what's happening here, the definition should include the three components of excellence. And I'm going to discuss those three components of excellence in my presentation. But also at the same time, let's try to have like a general meaning for excellence. What's excellence mean in general? So looking at the general terms, excellence mean exceeding the national norm of accomplishment. So what does that mean? You have like superior, exceptional, and outstanding performance. So that's just like an introduction to think about the excellence and the meaning of excellence. Now, what are these components? So the components are three: the teaching quality, the learning environment, and student outcome. So with that, then you need to think about, okay, what's in the teaching quality? So we would like to have a superior teaching quality in relation to the pedagogy, the instructional design, and the assessment. The learning environment is the learning environment, the facilities, the resources, the culture. So is it supportive of student learning? The student outcome in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude. So we're gonna discuss what the meaning on those. So if you think about the excellence, you need to include all the three components. You can't just say like, okay, we're gonna focus on the teaching quality and then ignore the learning environment, for example. So the emphasis should be on all the three components. So we're gonna start with the first one, the teaching quality. So in the teaching quality, we have the pedagogy, the instructional design, and the assessment. So in the pedagogy or the science of teaching, I would like just to focus into two things, although there is a lot that is being involved. The learning theory is very important. Knowing about the foundational education is very important. How you can actively involve the student in the learning process is very important. So now, for example, we are in the higher education, who are teaching adults? What do you think about learning about adult learning theory? Is that going to be helpful? Now, even if you have the background of the major educational theory, that will be very helpful if you would like your faculty to be innovative, for example. So if you like the faculty to be innovative without knowing the basic foundation, is going to be harder. Or otherwise, you will like them just to be a follower, copy what others they do. And with that, there is no opportunity for them to be innovative and to excel and to be an excellent teacher. The instructional design. So the instructional design should be effective, efficient, appealing, and enduring. So here I'm not going to talk about the instructional design model and how you do instruction, because that is a lot. But the highlight, the instruction should be effective, no doubt, should be efficient, should be appealing. What does that mean? It motivate and interest the learner. And enduring, we mean by enduring, so you help the student to encode the information in their long-term memory, rather than try to just to maintain the information in their working memory. Also, it is important with instructional design, if I can just give you the outline, so they should be like analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. So during the process of the instructional design, the goals and objectives will be identified. And accordingly, there will be a selection of learning activities and the development of the assessment to make sure you measure that the student, they achieve those learning objectives. Now, it is important that the objectives and the assessment should be aligned. So what does that mean? You can tell the student the objective of this lesson is this, and then you ask them about something different. So the question has to be aligned with the objectives. For the assessment, so we have formative, we have summative, and we have narrative. So the formative is mainly to help the student to monitor the progress of their learning. So it's not going to be counted towards the final grade. But the summative is going to be counted towards the final grade. So with that, then, the summative has to be fair and timely. So you remember when we said like the objectives should be aligned with the assessment. It's not going to be fair, for example, if you state objective and then you ask about something else. That can be one of the examples. And if I have the chance, I can give you more later. For the narrative assessment, this is mainly also formative. So you give the student narrative description of their performance, and that includes non-cognitive achievement. So usually you observe the student, how they interact, and how they follow direction and so on. and do they take the formative and those kind of things. And at the same times, also, you can have the student who work with them to give some kind of evaluation about the student, and that's just like a formative for the student. By the end of the course, you will provide that information to the student for improvement. Now, if I ask you a question, who is responsible for the selection of the teaching method, the content, development of the assessment, and so on? Who is responsible for doing all that? It's the faculty, it's the teacher. So if the teacher role is very important in the teaching quality, then we have to think about faculty development. We have to develop them professionally. That's very, very important. So then the question is going to be, what are we going to develop? So the important part here, there is some core competency that the faculty or the teacher, they have to acquire. And those are learning competency, social competency, educational competency, and technology competency. So with the learning competency, we would like to make sure the faculty are willing to improve their teaching effectiveness. And they take the initiative and they take the responsibility for their professional development. The social competency, how they communicate with a student of a diverse background, how they cooperate, how they collaborate with others. The educational competency, and this is very important, do they have the passion for the educational career? They need to develop the knowledge about what they teach, their discipline, the pedagogy, and the learning psychology. And now if I can bring to your attention here, there are some faculty who they feel like teaching is just something that I have to do, but it is not a major thing for me. My major role is research, how I bring money to the school, and that is going to be my focus. They ask me to teach, yes, I will teach, but do you think they're going to have the passion for being a good teacher? Are they going to develop themselves, learning more about the psychology of learning, the pedagogy, and so on? So the last competency, which is the technology competency, do the faculty have the ability to integrate the modern technology to enhance the learning outcome? Now, so if these are the topic or these are the competency that we would like the faculty to have. So how are we going to do that? By intervention. So intervention can be in form of workshop, seminar, short courses, and it can be maybe a longitudinal program. So that's very important. And it has been shown that this intervention can positively change the faculty behavior and can improve the outcome for the institution. So the faculty development is very important that we need to think about if we are interested to improve the quality of teaching. So, okay, we deliver all these intervention. Then we would like also to know, did the faculty acquire that? And part of that is through the faculty evaluation. So usually the evaluation of faculty has been done by student rating, peer review of teaching, self-evaluation. The faculty, that they can set a goal for themselves and they have a plan, and then they look at if they reach that goal or not, and they have some kind of reflection and feedback. There are others who also use a scholarship, use the award and the learning outcomes for evaluation faculty. So the evaluation is important because it will help the faculty, will be used as metrics for them to identify their strengths and their weaknesses. And now is being used as a criteria for promotion. So it become very, very important, a very important factor. So the faculty who they strive to do very well, I feel like it is very important to recognize them and to give them award for excellence. So the incentive to continue striving for excellence is very important. So now let me just give you, like, after we talk about what we need to develop and how we evaluate, let me give you the criteria or the characteristic of an excellent teacher. So excellent teacher, they always keep a student at the heart of their teaching. So what does that mean? They teach beyond content delivery. They motivate a student to reach their highest potential. They care about the student well-being and success. It's not like I'm going to come to the class, I'm going to deliver my content, and I'm done with you. No. Excellent teacher also view learning as a continuum. So that it is never too soon or too late for learning. So they are actively participate in ongoing professional development. They always seek out opportunity for professional development. They continually seeking constructive feedback for improvement. And that's also very important. They also set the bar very high for themselves. They can set the, if you are trying to reach the excellence, to be an excellent teacher, then you need to think about setting the bar very high. So when you reach that bar, so you are there and become an excellent teacher. See, now, let me just mention something about the development of expertise. Because being excellent teacher, you can't just be excellent teacher, start from a novice, all of a sudden you are expert teacher. It will take some time. And that should be part of the understanding to reach that. So usually the development of expertise needs three things. Motivation to attend to the task. Deliberate practice, you have to be dedicated. It is many years of dedicated time for practice. And you receive corrective feedback. So if that's happening, then yes, that will help you to reach that goal. So now this will cover most of the first component, the teaching quality. Now we're going to go to the second component, which is the learning environment. So the learning environment includes the facilities, the resources, and the culture. So that learning environment should promote student attainment of competency required for their future jobs. Now, the facilities should support the learning that will be effective. And most of what's happening right now, you can make the learner just sitting down and receiving a receiver of information. You have to involve the learner in the learning process. So you need to design the facilities to support student-centered learning and group activities. So what does that mean? If your institution, if the only thing that they have is large lecture halls, that might be difficult to move from teacher center to a learner center. The resources in terms of financial, the library, the information technology, and the information technology staff is very, very important too. The culture, the quality of interaction between the individual within the institution, the governing structure, the value and the belief of the member of that institution is also very important. See, now I'm going to share with you I don't feel like I have any more control of the slides.
ليه بروفيسور ما بتعمل معاك كليك؟
Yeah, I was clicking just I hear the sound.
أنا برضه هنا we hear the sound, it's not moving.
Yeah.
طب كده use manual الارو down.
Okay. That's working. Okay. See now, this is one of the facilities that we have at our institution. And if you see here, you see the students are working in a small group. And we have the technology support because everything that the student interact with is related to technology. All these slides are online, are virtual, they are not actual slides. The student, they have a program that they go and they ask them to question, and in a group, they interact and they try to identify structure, answer questions, and also try to solve problems. So that's mainly facilitated by what we have. And if you can see, we have the infrastructure for that. And now when COVID happened, and for us to move from what we used to do and to adapt to the COVID environment, what I mean by that, so we can maintain the social distancing, wearing the mask and, you know, regularly wash your hand and so on. What we did, those 4 students, we asked only 2 of them to be in person. The other 2, they have to work with those 2 remotely. And we provide them with a WebEx communication group so they can interact. So with the infrastructure that we had, the adaptation to COVID was not difficult. Although it is not the optimum, but we adapt in a way that everybody was also involved, but rather than being in person, the interaction becomes remotely for some of the students. Okay, now the last part, which is the student outcomes. So the student outcomes, usually they look at it from the knowledge, skill, and attitude, or the cognitive domain, the psychomotor, and the affective domains. The first part, the knowledge part, is about the fact, the concept, the procedure. And the skill part is mainly about the manual or the physical skills that require for practice. So how they perform a procedure. And then that the attitude is mainly deals with feeling, emotion, and values. Now, the question that we ask, do the student have the ability or the willingness to better communicate? We're talking here about their communication style. Do they have the, do they see value in teamwork? Because that is very important. And if you're going to think about, yes, we achieve the knowledge part, the examination, the result of the national exam, we are above average, we're doing very fine. Our student, you know, with the performing the procedure, they do very well. But if you didn't pay attention to the attitude, that can be also a problem. Because you're gonna ask yourself, so do the student achieve the program goals and are competent for the job? If you're gonna graduate a student that with the knowledge, the skill, and everything, but they don't have the attitude to work in a team, for example, the way they communicate is very negative. That is going to be problematic. So with that, then there's a lot of things that you need to consider. You are not going to rely on just one outcome. You need to think about all of the outcomes together and to think about, my graduate achieve all the goals of the program so they can compete when they graduate for the job. So that's very important. Now, I'm going just to supplement the outcome. Was talking a little bit about the student support, because sometimes people, they ignore the support and they just leave the student to do everything themselves. So usually the support can be academic, career, or personal. So with the academic, you help them to do better in their exams. the tutoring, skill development, the mentoring. With the career, they need to know about their career options, what type of job that they need to apply for, which one that will fit them better than the others, and so on. For the personal support, you need to think about the students. There is a lot of things that can distract them from their learning. Part of that can be something has to do with stress, for example, anxiety, worrying about how I'm going to pay all my debt. So giving the students some kind of support in those areas is very helpful. And if I can share with you, one of the things that we did in the academic support, because sometimes with the academic support, we focus on how the student remember the information. But the skills, which is very important, sometimes we ignore. So what we do in our school, as an example of skill development, we require the student to take learning and study strategy inventory. Is a questionnaire, and that questionnaire has about 60 questions that will assess 10 skills. These skills are the anxiety, attitude, concentration, information processing, motivation, selecting main idea, self-testing, test strategy, time management, and using the available academic resources. So why did we do that? We would like to help the student to be aware of their strengths and weaknesses in relation to the study strategies. And also that will tell us as the schools what area that we need to focus on in order to provide some kind of workshop for all the students. And also will be very helpful for somebody like me who meet with the student to try to diagnose what is missing for that student so they can get the coaching and they can get the help so they can excel. Sometimes people, they don't see like that is very important. And I can tell you, and sometimes faculty can be very judgmental. What I mean by that, like for example, they see like one student struggle in multiple courses, and then they say like, okay, this school is not the right school for that student. How did you know? You didn't know what was the reason for not performing well. So by looking at those skills, you can figure out what's happening. It can be they don't have the skill of managing their time. And the thing that I see a lot is the anxiety. They are very stressed. So with coaching on the anxiety, and sometimes we if they need a psychiatry, they can go and then we address that. And by doing that, then you support the student to be successful. So the same student, after you give that support, is performing very well. So just to conclude, in order to achieve teaching excellence, we need to develop the teacher. we need to improve the learning environment. We need to support students' success and well-being. And we need to commit to continuous quality improvement. So that is very important. And if you think about the continuous quality improvement, what will help with that, if there is accrediting organization that will accredit the school from time to time to see if they meet the minimum standard. So that will help with developing this culture of continuous quality improvement. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm open for all of your questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohammed Khalil. And if you can kindly stop the share so we can see all people. Thank you very much. Very, very exciting presentation. And this is, I think, what we all need as teachers. Now, I can take few questions before we go to the second paper, and then we have a reflection from Dr. Daba. Anyone having a burning question to Professor Mohammed Khalil? If you can either press that hand bottom or send me a message on the chat. I have few from the Facebook, but if there's anyone from those who are here, want to ask any question?
I have a question, Dr. Alam, if you don't mind.
Yes, Dr. Angie, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, he talked about teaching excellence. One of the criteria for the teaching excellence is the student's evaluation. To what extent student evaluation could be a bias sometimes to provide a good feedback, or let's say good evaluation to test the level of excellence of some faculty members? Because we have noticed sometimes that students, when we are evaluating some faculty members, one of the criteria taken is the feedback of the students. And there are other indicators. To what extent sometimes some feedback, or let's say the student evaluation, could be a bias, not kind of really reflecting the reality of the teaching excellence of the faculty members, in your opinion and from your experience?
That can be very true. But if that evaluation is part of the culture of the institution, and the student, they know when they evaluate the course, when they evaluate the faculty, they will be a response to their evaluation. So for example, if the student, they say, okay, we will see it better if you do this or if you do that. And if there is a response to the student, then the student, they will be willing to provide constructive feedback. It is very true that there are some students who are not. But in order to minimize that, we also have to train the student on providing constructive feedback. So the student, they need to understand, in order to have something that will help improve our teaching, improve your learning, provide us a constructive feedback. So that's very important. At the same time, we ask the student to be very professional, because we see, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Some of the students, they take it personal, and then they say whatever
exactly.
that they say. And honestly, if there is emphasis from the institution, we watch you. We would like you to be professional. If you act in unprofessional way, that can be reported at the end. The student, they will be very careful, and honestly, at the end, it is also a training for the student. So from the beginning, if we start to say like, okay, now this is how you provide constructive feedback, and we continue to tell them that, so their feedback is going to improve with time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Mohammed Khalil. I don't know if I know you joined us late, but in the first, I think the second session, we had the director of quality from the Ministry of Education in Libya. He's a UK graduate and he is very well up to date with the standards and the quality you're referring to. But I was very surprised. He mentioned few things which echo what we have seen in Sudan and Egypt and many other countries. He said in Libyan universities, as an example, one of the recommendations he put forward to make sure they built toilets for male and females. I have seen this issue repeated many times. I'm not sure how well you are aware. Many universities, particularly the poorest part of MENA, students, they don't even have a drinkable water to drink. They don't have toilets. Imagine these are the essential for their well-being, because you mentioned number two, supporting the students and for their learning and well-being. Imagine someone can't even have access to toilets and drinkable water. Of course, I know this is a big question for the government macroeconomic policy, but imagine I wish if he's still here or he can come online. I can't see him. But imagine this is someone leading the quality standards at the Ministry of Higher Education in a country like Libya. In Sudan, we have the same problem. I have seen this by myself. In Tunisia, I visited a very university just toward the very end of Tunis, just toward the Italy on the other side in the northwest. And I can remember the university, despite being far away in the end of Tunis, but still you can see the students are having good facilities. So the picture is, I mean, I know this is more of a macroeconomic policy, but what can you say to lecturers like those, Professor Mohammed, who can say to you, everything you mentioned is perfect, but really, Professor, we are struggling even to get our salary. Our students, they don't have water to drink, they don't have toilet to use. So I know you will be sympathized, but what can you say to these people? There are many, many universities like this.
It's, I don't know, something like that. Here they close the university. They are not going to give them accreditation, because accreditation, they're going to look at everything. You know, even, believe it or not, the student here, you need to provide them with a lounge, with area that they can go, they can eat, they can watch TV, they can communicate with each other. And if you're going to tell me like they can find a place to drink, they can find bathroom, toilet that is really, I don't know what to say about that. But
for you as an expert, Professor Mohammed, and I think you are an expert, you have the authority to advise. Do you advise this university should really be shut, right?
Because you can't, they can maintain everything with their teaching and learning. Okay, so the student, their focus on their learning is going to be a lot of distraction. They're going to think about why I'm going to go to class if I can't go to the bathroom, if I can't drink. And now the thing that is make it difficult, the number of the school or the number of university there might be limited. But here there is a competition between the university. If you have something like that, you can recruit. There will be no student apply to your school. You see what I'm saying? This is something that has to come from the top. If the government, they are really keen about graduating a student, that when they graduate, they be part of enhancing the productivity of the whole country, they can't let something like that happening in their university. No way.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Any other final question before we move to the second speaker? We'll come back to Professor Mohammed. Any other question? Any other question?
Professor
Adam,
Mohammed,
I have a
Dr.
question.
Abdul, he's raising his hand.
Dr.
Well,
Adam.
sorry, so that's the problem. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Abdul Rauf. Yes, sorry, I'm sorry, Abdul Rauf. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I haven't seen you. Yeah, go ahead, brother Abdul Rauf. Can you unmute yourself? Dr. Abdul Rauf, please unmute yourself.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to have an input into the same question of assessment and evaluation, you see, but I'm just trying to focus on one thing, which is the assessment of, for example, a university of it, for its own different departments and faculties. I noted that, for example, in Saudi Arabia, some departments, colleges, they appoint their own teachers and lecturers to evaluate the performance of their own department or faculty or whatever. So, and this internal evaluation, I would say, has some positive sides because these people who are from the same university or institution, they are more knowledgeable about their own educational environment, their capabilities. Teachers know each other very well. They know the positives and the negatives of each one through mutual feedback system and things like that. But they lack the professionalism of, if I can say, they lack the professionalism of the external examiners, like the ones being regularly sent by, for example, the World Bank and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. These panels come from these developed countries. They are very, very well equipped to do the evaluation and come up with good reports. But also on the negative side of it, they don't know the local culture as the local personnel do. So, Professor, I'm asking you this question about how can we balance these two things, and which one do you think? And as you already saw my presentation with the rankings and the higher education, what do you call it, THE, Times Higher Education rankings, and the OECD rankings, and the Webometrics rankings. These people, you see, every year they come up with this very complicated metrics which they use, and then they develop this evaluation reports, and then produce them and then publish them. What do you think? Is it better to do both? For example, internal assessment, or this external assessment by external panels, or what do you think?
So the evaluation should include the internal and the external. So let me give you a concrete example. See, if, for example, the accrediting organization here in the US, they will come to your school and they evaluate everything. But before they do that, they will involve you in the self-study. The self-study is done by the school, the faculty of the school, and it is internal evaluation. So you remember when I said, like, you need to develop a culture of continuous improvement? That's part of that. So internally, you always look at what you did, what is missing, what you would like to improve, and so on. Did you reach the minimum requirement that is set by the accrediting organization? So you do the self-study, and then you submit your self-study to the accrediting body. They're going to look at it before they will come and do the site visit and see everything live and in person with you. So if there is an external evaluation, that will help even the internal evaluation to be targeted to reach a level of what needs to be evaluated. You know, what are the important elements of evaluation that is already being identified? That is going to be very helpful.
Professor Mohammed Khalil, thank you very much. I think for the time, I will move to thank you very, very much. And stay with us. Let me move to the second speaker, and then we'll open the whole thing for discussion. So I would like now, I think this was very, very enlightening, a very good presentation. It will help us all. We all have to reflect on what is being said so far here. And I would like to move to our second speaker, Dr. Mohammed Galal Hassan Said. You have seen him earlier. He's an associate professor of chemical and sustainable engineering at Southampton University. He has a tremendous experience, 20 years of experience in higher education. He worked in the UK, he studied in the UK, but also he had experience in the Middle East and North Africa. Professor Mohammed is going to talk to us about quite an important topic to complement what is already being said in the first part of this session. He's going to follow up in what his intervention earlier, and he's going to talk to us about redefining university education and delivery. And he is currently leading the designing of a complete program in chemical engineering at Southampton University. So Professor Mohammed, I think you already have the, okay, no, sorry, I'm just making you a co-host, and the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Alam. Can you see my presentation okay?
Yes, just make it bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the platform and for engaging in this conference here. As Dr. Alam said, I worked extensively over the last 20 years between the UK system. I worked in Egypt for 5 years. I worked in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar. I have, through the petroleum system, ended up delivering practices in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as far afield as in Malaysia as well. So I developed several courses around the globe, but my experience in Southampton has been a bit different. When I developed courses in Kuwait and in Egypt and here in the UK at Portsmouth University, there was an existing course that had to be upscaled or redesigned for a new purpose. But when I joined Southampton January 2020, a year ago, I was given a blank piece of paper. Chemical engineering didn't exist in the university, and I was told to design a course that meets the traditional needs of chemical engineering, but looks into the future. And this brings us to the first element of what I had to do when I was looking at the design of going through a blank piece of paper. What do I have in mind? I need to see what educationalists have done in the past. And looking at what Stephen has said from Plymouth University, education is grounded in the past to develop the future. And this kind of presents a concept of what we're trying to do in terms of the chemical engineering core, integrating sustainability within the syllabus that we have to do. But then 8 weeks into working with Southampton, I ended up having my third child. I was in paternity leave. And before I came back to the university, I was in lockdown, and I still am in lockdown. So the ability to maneuver and function became a bit different. I ended up having to develop a new course for the university in a virtual environment. I ended up having to go through the validation and the accreditation of this course in a virtual environment. And what I want to do and talk to you around it today is our focus around the change from core chemical engineering into a chemical engineering that meets the sustainable development future needs. And as everyone has said from 9 o'clock this morning throughout the different sessions, is the Sustainable Development Goals consist of 17 different goals that lead anything from poverty to equality of education, to establishing elements of climate change, practice change, industrial needs, the partnerships, the upscaling and recycling and utilization of the material. But when you're faced with this and you have to integrate this into a subject-specific manner, you need to think about it from a different point of view. And one of the first things we thought about when I came to design the chemical engineering course is rearrange the jigsaw puzzle. And when you rearrange it, you arrange it into different layers. The smallest layer for me is the economy. GDP's economy, that's what drives everything around. And that's why we had a sluggish year over the last 2 years, because of the lack of exchange, the lack of supply and demand, lack of issues. So mobilizing the economy is a function of society. And society is heavily interactive between developing equality, establishing health, establishing hunger, and elements like that. So economy sits within society, but society drives economy. And both of them live on a planet. And this is the biosphere, and that's why we have to respect the diversity, reduce the emissions, meet the water needs, all these elements here. And I put number 17 through the center of this, which is interdisciplinary or relationships and links. And this is where the course can start materializing itself in a different way from a traditional chemical engineering to a more sustainable, futuristic chemical engineering course. So the first thing is understanding what chemical engineering is. And chemical engineering is the application of science and engineering principles in terms of transforming raw material into useful chemicals for society. But we decided to integrate the element of sustainability and economics into it, because we want to use the resources that we have, minimize the use of the resources, but maximize the yield from it, hence adding more economic value. But we need to look at sustainability from the greater concept of using less material, generating less waste, and generating useful products around the element here. And within chemical engineering, we had to look at different elements between the principles of engineering, the physical laws of sciences that exist, and all the unit operators and design components within chemical engineering that has to happen, and how do they integrate with each other to solve a problem. So we've decided to incorporate the economics, the sustainability, and the management into defining chemical engineering. And the first element is to design or define what the layers of chemical engineering is. Traditionally, chemical engineering exists as you see in front of you. It's the transformation of raw material into useful products. And useful products could be anything from medicinal products, pharmaceutical products, food, technologies, fuels, upscaling and upgrading of fuels, detergents, plastics. That's what we do as chemical engineers. And all of this is governed between designing the synthetic route in terms of the heat and energy demands of the system, and how the system operates holistically within itself. The problem with this layer or this core traditional chemical engineering principality is it meets historic needs. But as we move towards a sustainability element, we need to start thinking of how we can develop this further into integrating energy, environment, emissions, the needs for society in terms of hunger and food and health and quality education and other things. So the first thing we started doing is asking these elements of, we need to preserve the core of chemical engineering, the value that already chemical engineering has to society has to be preserved. But we need to incorporate new technologies, merging technologies. There's nanotechnologies, there's the smart cities, there's data mining, there's all the medicinal elements, there's the food elements that are changing. The resources are diminishing, the change and shift in attitudes of society. So we have to preserve the value of it and upscale it, but also create new avenues and new values for ourselves. And as technology, engineering, and science develop further from a research point of view, all we have to look at is having to design, operate, and manufacture a mass vaccine over the last couple of months. And this is at the heart of chemical engineering, because it's manufacturing at its best, bringing chemical from lab into productional status. So this has to meet time demands and other issues. And that's where we said the fundamentals of engineering science has to be agreed. And the last element is we need to incorporate the global elements into it. We are chemical engineers, our local industry with a global flair. All you have to do is look at Oxford vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine. It's manufactured in different places that the company owns around the world, but each one of them manufactures locally to a local market or a sensitized market such as Europe or America or other things. So globalization is a big issue, and the companies have to transcend all these global issues in terms of economy, environment, in terms of reducing the energy, in terms of health and wealth and food and the environment. This is actually a bit more apparent in terms of historic legacies. Companies like Talisman Energy pulled out of production of oil in Sudan. The reason behind that is their international image of a Canadian company that upholds organization and global legislation was against the practices of what was happening in Sudan in terms of remittance, in terms of relocalization of people, in terms of other things like that. So you can see that companies are taking that corporate social responsibilities and integrating a bit further. So the course that we had to design at Southampton has to incorporate and start answering these questions here. So we started looking at the interface of there is fundamental new concepts and innovations coming from sciences, such as the micro, the meso scales. Engineering is coming up with the new big data sciences and smart cities and data management and other things like that. We have to merge it within the core element of it here. But we have to integrate it in an innovative manner. We need to think of how processes that we apply, how heat transfer and mass transfer and all the principles that we use in chemical engineering and upscaling will operate and in an innovative way. To meet the sustainability requirements, we want to use less water, we want to use less energy, we want to use less resources, but we want to maximize the product and meet the economic benefits. So the core layer developed an extra layer in terms of the sustainability, the innovation, the engineering, and the sciences. And this brings us to another issue that we have to focus while we're doing this. The population of the world is going to grow over the next few years. And we're talking 2030 and then 2050, we're going to go from 7 to 9 to 10, 11 billion people on the planet. And as the population increases, the cycle of economy will be magnified even more, 6 to 7 times the global GDP from between now and the next 30, 40 years. The reliance on chemicals and raw materials will increase significantly. There will be a demand on energy. And at the moment, there's a big shift in the energy market from a resource point of view. We're moving from petrol to renewable energy. We're trying to implement the sustainability and trying to look at emissions. Electricity demands and fuel demands are changing and behaving differently. Obviously, as time goes by, the basic need for human water is important, but water is a big process for industrialization that we need to worry about here. And as we meet the demands in terms of food and pharmaceuticals and chemicals for the new society in 2050, this will lead to an increase in carbon emissions. So one of the biggest elements that we have to worry about as chemical engineers is look at how we're going to use natural resources to bring goods into the market, but minimizes the last element in terms of the waste, the environment, the distribution to it here. So waste management became a big important element in terms of designing our new course here. And this brings us to the last layering in terms of making sure the industry is able to apply things. We, as the educators, have to develop the education and the long life association with education. If we are going to talk about a sustainable chemical engineering course that not meets today's needs, but future needs, education has to be at the heart of it. Society needs to feed in what it requires for the educators to then be able to upscale the course on a cyclic level. That's why we have an industrial board. That's why we have an accrediting body. That's why we go through validation every 5 years to reinstigate what the course should deliver for the future rather than just for the past here. And in this, we are meeting the grand challenges and establishing the links that we established as a spear throughout the economy, society, and biospheres that we have here in terms of the applicational levels. And then there is a new dimension that we have to worry about here between the reality of taking current existing systems and how we model them experimentally to optimize our designs. This is what we do from a research laboratory point of view, but we can't simulate the production of every type of chemical and every type of processes. If we try to do that, the dangers, the pressures, the energy demands are severe. So we started moving towards the virtual models, where we use mathematical interpretations of real models in a virtual environment. We simulate what could happen and how we can maximize the outputs and minimize the inputs. And once we reach a conclusive design within the simulation virtual environment, we feed back into the real processes to try and simulate them. So at the heart of what we're trying to do, beyond increase the core layers of chemical engineering to meet sustainability needs, we actually have to infuse the computerization element, not from a delivery point of view, but actually from understanding how the processes could be improved further and how we can apply this in a better design here. So the next thing we started looking at here is the resources that we use and how we can use them sustainably. Look at the energy, the water, the food, the requirements. Look at all the elements that the global is facing now in terms of emissions, in terms of pandemics, in terms of oil spills, in terms of pollution, in terms of war on plastic, in terms of all the elements that people are perceiving as negative to the environment and anti-sustainability. So if you try and integrate all of these into it here, what we came up with is the first shift in education for engineers and chemical engineering particularly, is we need to link chemical engineering knowledge with a lifelong association. It's not just about the course that we deliver today, it's about beyond that course. Our students are lifelong associated, learned individuals who are continuously seeking CPDs, chartership, affiliations with the industries and other things. So the course that we design is linked to the Institute of Chemical Engineers that will oversee their development at different levels, between incorporated engineer to chartered engineer to a practicing engineer, and develop these courses here. And then we try to modernize classical elements by adding more fundamental science, but more renewable energies, more new processes, emphasis on the biological, the pharmaceutical, the electronic systems, and how they can be utilized from a chemical engineering point of view to maximize the productivity of the design element. So the first thing we came up with is a focus on sustainability. Our vision, our strategy is to design an internationally focused course around sustainability. We aim to equip our graduates with skills that will enable them to respond to the changing landscapes of chemical engineering. So it's a sustainable course, but it's also the changing layers of the chemical engineering that we aim to design things around here. And with that came the 17 Millennium Goals, or Sustainable Development Goals, that the United Nations offered, and we tried to transpose that across what we have done. So the first thing is designing the general scheme of advanced sustainability in chemical engineering. We designed the brochure of what our image wants to be. We want to have quality in education, and this is diffused through our institute. We are number 15 out of 130 universities in the UK, Southampton. We're in the top 100 in all matrices and other qualifying elements. We read world research is defined through the Russell Group and through the income of research that we have here. So we already have the quality in education. We have been awarded the Athena's One, which is a representation in the UK in terms of gender equality, diversity, and all these elements. So we started through the quality of the institute to enhance this into our quality of teaching. The other thing that we wanted to do when designing our syllabus is look at the new areas. Where is the biological areas for pharmaceuticals and food? Where is the scenario area in terms of mesoreactors and microreactors rather than large-scale reactors, maximizing productivity in a continuous phase rather than a batch system here. Work closely with the industries, look at efficiency, look at the 12 layers of green chemistry and how we can reduce and reuse and recycle and upcycle, and try and innovate in chemical engineering as much as possible. And we took that in combination with the Institute of Chemical Engineering requirements of core, depth, breadth, and design, and we tried to marry that element from the first year to the second year to the third year if you graduate with a BEng, or fourth year if you're graduating with an MSc. So it grows with you as you go through the system, and the sustainability is a main feature of all coursework, and our design should incorporate 40% practical elements, because engineers by trade should have dirty hands, but they need to develop the academic skills as well from a historical point of view to the future applications point of view here. So the next thing is we looked at what the market requires in terms of what does the industry require in upscaling, in sustainability, and other things like that. Designed for the long term. We're not designing a classical chemical engineering course that does not meet today's requirements. We're designing a sustainable chemical engineering course that looks into the future here. We have to uphold Southampton University's core values in terms of the 6 sustainability values that our Vice Chancellor has presented today, in terms of our image, equality, diversity, uphold the quality of education that we have, being in the top 15 in the UK, being in the top 100 globally. Designed for the end users, because then we don't want to bring our graduates into a market that doesn't exist. So we've engaged with the industry to make sure they have that here. And everything was designed to iterate my predecessors, the presentation from Dr. Khalil, Mohammed before me, about the quality of accreditation, about self-assessment to improve the value that we add to our students to ensure then the course meets it. So we've designed the course according to all these elements here. And this is what we materialize with. I mean, I appreciate most of you are not chemical engineers, so you don't see the value on what I've done here. But at least in the first year, the green elements are the fundamentals of engineering. And the orange elements in year 1 and 2 are chemistry. So the value or the principles of sciences between chemistry and engineering has been infused into the syllabus. The blue elements throughout the course are chemical engineering courses, and they cover the core in the first year, leading into the breadth and the depth between year 2, 3, and 4. In year 3, you'll notice elements such as process intensification and group design projects, where we diffuse large elements of the future element. Process intensification in chemical engineering is a new trend in research, never mind being a teaching or an academic established unit, because it's all about moving from the macro scale to the micro scale, meeting the sustainability needs. And we brought that research element here. The group design is the largest element, hence it looks like a shape. It's 45 credits compared to the 15 credits everywhere else on the syllabus, because that's where the student brings in all the elements together, and they have to link all the design elements to the Millennium Goals as established here. And in year 4, when they move into it, we put the design component in 2 elements: chemical engineering innovations, and then the design for scale. And design for scale mimics what they study in year 3, which is engineering management and law, to develop that link between business, risk analysis, societal needs, in terms of linking everything together at a grander scale. And we diffuse a lot of electives here to help the student develop their own strands into the element here. So when it comes to the elective, we wanted to go through the smart manufacturing element first of all. We wanted to look at the new dimensions in terms of hydrocarbon use for petroleum elements and the shale industry and the gas industry being developed, but also focus on the renewable energy side of things here. We wanted to make sure the course is multidisciplinary in terms of crossing boundaries between business, management, risk, but also between science and engineering into an application form of view. Data sciences and management is a big element of it here, and I will talk about this when I come to my lab element here, and contribute to society positively in terms of our graduates, our holistic graduates, who have the core, the depth, the breadth of chemical engineering, but can value and add more to society in terms of the element here. So our electives were designed with the Millennium Goals in mind here. And you can see some of them in terms of chemical engineering for sustainable energy, or water usage, or sustainable chemistry, or ethics in the environment, or pharmaceutical systems. There's food systems. They're all designed around a 1, 2, or 3 of the Millennium Goals to meet the elements that we have here. At level 4, they have 3 electives to choose from, and you can see they're even more specialized. They're at high level of integration because they're at more master's level in terms of food processing, in terms of plant safety, in terms of energy resource management, or wastewater management, or waste management, or reaction at a micro scale, or new elements in terms of electrochemistry. So we're trying to integrate all the elements to give that speciality within the course here. This is in terms of the teaching element, but also the entire concept of chemical engineering is new to Southampton. As I said, I took charge of it in January 2020. So it's only a year old, and it's been a refurbishment process and a developmental process. So we're trying to incorporate sustainability into all elements that we do here. We took the existing building of chemistry, which is building 30 and building 27, that both exist in the university, and we've done a £12 million investment into them, because that's what they were given, that's what I was given to manage in terms of refurbishing the buildings to meet the needs for chemistry for the future, but also design, chemical engineering, integrated it. And it's been an endeavor of working with project managers and architects, the estate buildings within the university, to actually design a building that has all the components in terms of the good environment to work in, emissions, energies, water usage, meeting the carbon net principles that our Vice Chancellor was mentioning earlier on. So this is in terms of the building, but part of this budget was also about investing into the labs. I have 10,000 square meters of specialized facilities in engineering, but we also have a 5-story building in terms of chemistry and chemical engineering with different equipment. So as we designed the new equipment, you can see pictures of the new lab design here. It's designed more around the sustainability environment. We looked at waste, generated energy, water, and other things like that. We also incorporated it in the procurement stage. Part of the budget that we have is to buy new equipment that will help train the students in sustainable chemical engineering. So we looked at biofuels and bioethanols and other wastewater reactive systems. And all these equipments at the moment, when we develop the specifications before we go into market for tender so companies can compete for them, we put sustainability at the heart of that. So equipment have to give us an energy consumption level. They have to define how the wastes are managed. They have to meet the requirements of the university in terms of the state facility operations and energy requirements and utilization of chemicals. So we've diffused sustainability not only in our course, in our building, but also in purchasing new equipment of the elements that we have to do here. Now, if we're lucky, the video will work. This is kind of a generation of one of the floors that we worked on here. And the course is all due to start in September this year, with the operations, hopefully for the labs in February 2022 onwards. But you can see in this floor here, we've designed localized areas for the students to have their cupboards. You move into the main lab space here. To your left, there is, you can see it there, there's a room for the lab technicians to manage the lab. You can see how the layers have happened. The architect haven't actually put in, but all the water facilities, all the energy facilities are suspended from the ceiling or on the floor here. We can quantify the kilowatt of energy used per equipment in this lab here. We've gone for smart metering. We know the intensity of the light. We know the ambient temperatures. We know the material, where it came from and what it's being done. Historically, the building exists, but any new material we've done, we actually quantified through estate architects and project managers. We have several offices here in terms of chemical storages, some PhD research areas. But as I said, integration of simulation is a big element. And this is our simulation suite. It's a big endeavor where we have control rooms for the academics to sit in. Students can come in and integrate their designs. And as they start operating their designs, the academics from the background can develop new elements or new ambiguities that could happen for the students to react to. And this adds a new dimension in terms of the student having to do it. And you can see here another video of what the company that we're developing things with can do. The students sit there, they put in a new design that they have, that they want to design in manufacturing of drugs, for instance, because we have several medicals with us here. And then they emulate the design process from a micro level, each component, to measuring the temperatures, the pressure, all the elements into it, to the integration of the full factory. And if there is any element of ambiguity that could happen, we as instructors can send it into the system for them to experience what could happen in terms of a big fire, an explosion, lack of pressure indicators, lack of readers, mass transfer not working at all, the heat temperatures not reaching the appropriate temperatures, and side reactions forming that will limit other things for you. So we can diffuse all these elements into it. So we're trying to incorporate computerized system in a different way. And we also, between year 2 and 3, or between 3 and 4, we built in the industrial placement to play on the success of Southampton with the industry. We have many industries that invest in our research. So we wanted our students to develop that work experience, and it's not mandated, but it's recommended for the students to engage with it, and we will help them seek that. We also, as part of the course, and as my previous, the previous speaker mentioned, the quality of the course has to be important. So we've designed an industrial board, and in the industrial board, it's not just chemical engineering from energy, food, and pharmaceuticals and plastics who actually are sit there. We involve companies that deal with waste management. We've involved banks. We've involved architectural firms to bring in a link of that industry element and make sure that we recognize what engineers can, or chemical engineers can contribute to society, but how society feed back into the civil war, into the applications of industrialization of chemical engineering. As part of the £12 million funding that we have, we took a small percent of 20,000, which is not significant money. But with that, we tried to use it as a seed money to incorporate sustainability into different researches around the university. And we hope through this to leverage a higher grant later on that will be the seed for sustainability activities in the university from a research point of view. We called it the Center of Excellence in Continuous Digital Chemical Engineering and Sciences, because the whole concept is to bring in the chemical engineering elements from all walks of life, whether it's social, medical, pharmaceutical, energy applications, and so on. And in terms of research, we are very active. We have about 3 PhD students so far. Don't forget the department is only 1 year old, so we are picking up momentum slightly, but we are part of the school. We sit between the School of Chemistry and the School of Engineering. We are a hybrid between the two schools, so our success feeds into both their success. They contribute towards our teaching. At the moment, there's only 2 chemical engineers on site, myself, and later on in April, another professor started with me. And we are leading research in terms of we are editors of papers. We've published a few books. We've got a few PhD students, and we are generating a few ideas, even was the World Association of Sustainable Development that Dr. Alam operates within is trying to interact and help us develop some of the Millennium Goal research that we're trying to achieve and the funding that we're trying to apply for here. So in conclusion, we've tried to add value and make a positive contribution to society from a chemical engineering point of view here. So the first thing we addressed is in terms of the resource management, because chemical engineering is all about the transformation of resources into useful products. And we incorporated a sustainable use of the resource in our syllabus. Then we tried to incorporate new ideas such as process intensification, such as using new tools, using the simulator and using the virtual control room, worrying about bringing in sustainable equipment to the lab and making sure the students have the practical elements into it here. Develop the balance between fundamentals of engineering, fundamentals of sciences, and how they can marry each other to enhance the chemical engineering design element here. We also went a step further and we looked at the Barcelona Accord, for instance, which is a European MENA agreement or a North Africa agreement, which features a lot into the MENA region. We also looked at the Paris climate change and other things like that, and we saw how our course can add value to this here, and we want to develop this sustainability throughout the concepts here. So over the last year, what we've done is designed a new, robust chemical engineering course. It's at the heart of sustainability. It promotes research and development. It's integrating in all walks of life between Southampton as a city, Hampshire as a county, between different countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, where we're developing different research avenues and different research outputs. We're trying to disseminate our work and our research and our activities here. We are preserving the core of chemical engineering, but we're adding to it in terms of environment, safety, security, food. We're adding the ethical components in terms of some of the teaching that we have to do. And we've tried our best to develop a sustainable chemical engineering course that is traditional in its core, but also meets the requirements of the future. Thank you very much. I know it's been a bit late and I tried to rush through my presentation because I think I'm way over time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. If you can stop your sharing, thank you very, very much. And I'm really delighted because this presentation complements what's said earlier by Professor Mohammed Khalil. We're talking about top quality of services and so on. I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Daba. He can reflect on both presentation, and he's a leading academic and associate professor or innovation and entrepreneurship, but he has done lots of work in the Middle East, and he's the director of the Middle East Center. He can reflect on both of your presentation before we take other questions. I wanted him originally to moderate this session, but I couldn't see him when we started. But so he will have a better chance now to give feedback and reflect on what you have said. Dr. Daba, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Alam. The great opportunity that you are giving to me, and I'm really a little bit surprised that how can I actually saying something to this to really strong academician who are presented their strong will to the near future, especially for our young generation. And I want to say like in few things before I obviously giving a little bit more commentary about the both presentation. I think the MENA region is always doing great job and great opportunity for the Sub-Sahara and all Gulf countries. However, today the conference is bringing a lot of new things. Really, I was since morning. My face is not there actually. I was coming and going, but the sum of paper are really, really important, especially in this pandemic period of the situation or the current environment. So I want to thanks to all presenters, especially those people are actually bringing new knowledge to the academic world and the business world. And also I want to thanks the especially Professor Alam with his team that with such a short period of time, he make a lot of new things, and which is really valuable, which is really untouchable. Means actually the what he's doing and what you are giving to the society, I think is absolutely is a crucial and vital. Especially the pandemic can make people are so much stressed, so much detached. But I think this connection, this type of conference, obviously now we are in very less people here. However, I know the Facebook and online, and especially once you are your good thing is you always recording and putting in the YouTube and all sort of thing. I think people are using it is all the time. So that's thanks to you for that thing. And coming back to the obviously Professor Khalil, well done, and really I'm impressed. Obviously, as Professor Alam mentioned earlier, you have we can see in the background of your office or your house there's a lot of lot of shield that is actually mean that how good you are, how recognized by the people, and that is I think is a motivation for other people also. And you are actually the example of many people. Honestly speaking, I saw the way you are talking. Obviously, now here is obviously two things I want to mention very shortly. Obviously, we are academic by business or engineering or sort of thing. But I think getting this type of conference with the medical science is great opportunity and interlink with the medicine and the public health and the society. So I think that it will be really good things, and we must appreciate on behalf of the organization, behalf of the Professor Alam's team, that you bring a lot of things. And really I was surprised. I was listening and I take a lot of note, especially like in excellence. This is actually talking about the business world, how you actually motivated a student and all sort of thing. But what you shows today, what I understood really, because in the medical science and you talk about the psychological impact, you talk about the capabilities, resource and capabilities, and you also measuring the teacher's evaluation, like especially how as a good teacher can teach more than the curriculum. And that is I think the most important message from your presentation, that curriculum is everybody can teach it, and even now online people can go to the Google, they can look at it what curriculum is set up for the some particular subject or topic. But the beyond that how the teacher is actually giving his or her own experience and bringing everything to the well wishes for a student and a good citizen. I think that is the most important thing you bring today. And thanks to you, and thanks to your obviously all work that you are giving, already you given and you are giving, and I'm sure you will be continue this thing. And I'm really appreciated by your work and your hard support for your student and the globally, especially the globally. So today this is the symbol, and I think what Professor Alam bring you to the presentation, especially today, I think that is an opportunity for us. So thank you very much for your kind support, for your contribution to conference and in the globally. Thank you so much. And coming back
thank
to
you very much, Professor Daba. And now questions. I know we are a little bit over time, but I think we're getting there. Now questions for the last presentation for Dr. Mohammed Hassan, or for both speakers? Any question?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm trying to see.
Yeah. Professor Alam, if I can give you
yes,
one.
Go ahead, Dr. Daba. Yes, go ahead.
2 minutes. Sorry, I didn't actually say the Professor Mohammed, who is the Southampton. I think his work now is coming to the engineering. Actually, today, the 3 things we are actually coming together. One is coming from medical science, one is engineering, and we talk in the morning and healthcare and all lot of other subjects like in social science and sort of thing. I think also what Mohammed Hassan is doing, obviously, absolutely, it is really something that modelizing at the moment for post-COVID, how sustainability, I think that the way he was actually designed, especially this is a fantastic, the video he shows. I think this is unbelievable. The people should learn from there and how it is actually interconnected in the business world, especially the chemical engineering or mechanical or whatever engineering, software engineering, all our engineering things actually not need to be a conservative way to run. It should be a open-minded and show the world. I think Dr. Hassan or Mohammed Hassan did today exactly same thing, and his contribution and I think is a fantastic work he's doing in the Southampton. Hoping his work will be more recognizable and more connected in the worldwide, so it will be actually getting more knowledge. So that's all from me to for presenter, and behalf of the organizing committee and on behalf of Mohammed Alam, I think we are really pleased that we get this type of experienced people in the conference and getting the inside knowledge to bring it like explicit, which is fantastic. And thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daba. Dr. Mohammed, and I think also Professor Mohammed Khalil can also come in here, but let me start. The question says, fantastic what you are showing here, professors, but this is very expensive lab. I think that he's referring, or she's referring to the video you showed, Dr. Mohammed. Very expensive lab, knowing that even the very rich Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE are very tight on budget on higher education. And also the question continued to say, can you offer any comments on the mentality in the Middle East and Arab countries about not to spend too much money on investment on higher education? I think this question has been echoed before, that countries in the Middle East and Arab countries generally, the culture is they are not willing to spend too much money on investment, or they're not willing to invest on higher education. Although for the fairness to like Qatar or UAE, Saudi Arabia, they are investing. So 2 questions. Maybe you start, and then maybe Mohammed Khalil can add some part. Very good labs, he said or she said, but very expensive. So how can what will happen in the MENA? They can't afford it.
Okay, well, first of all, if you want to design a good, robust chemical or engineering lab in general, it has to have a practical element into it. I am fortunate in the fact that I stepped into a job that has a budget already established that I can spend from and build an element. But this is not to take from some of the experiences that we implemented in Sudan. I'm buying a solvent extractor, for instance, for £60,000. But in Sudan, we used to do the same experiment in terms of extracting red color or red dye from hibiscus or kerkere. We did that with simple materials. I'm sure Dr. Khalil Dr. Mohammed will echo my issue in terms of medical practices as well, is there are fundamental elements. We're not seeking to, we want to equip our students to be good engineers. And to be good engineers in our case, because we already have the equipment, we want to go a step further from just applying the knowledge to actually analyzing the results and interpreting the results and coming up with new equipment. So we're eliminating some of the teaching material in terms of designing the experiment to actually focus more on the analysis of the results and how does that feed into the sustainability, the 17 goals, the requirements of society in the future. But if I take the same concept and I apply it to Sudan, instead of just buying the heavy equipment, I can design it from simple glassware to do the same experiments and ask the student to reflect on the build and how I can materialize this to the future. So it's the same thing. And in Saudi, I've been to King Khalid University, and they have a world-class organization. The Petroleum Institute in UAE is one of the best. In Texas A&M in Qatar has one of the best labs I've seen around in the world, and Dr. Ibrahim Nimr operates that lab there.
Dr. Mohammed, what is the question? Yeah, you're right. I have seen fantastic facilities in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Qatar. No, Qatar, I have only seen the Doha Institute, but the issue here is most of the MENA, which include Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, these countries can't afford this high quality facilities for the learning Professor Mohammed Khalil was referring to. So what shall they do? Is there any compromise they can do? Is there any low tier facilities they can do? I mean, I'm not trying to ask for low cost, if you like, facilities, but if there's any way they can accommodate still getting good quality without spending that $12 million or pounds?
Yeah, of course there are. Some of the companies I work with work heavily in Africa, and some of them actually you don't have to buy the equipment. You can lease the equipment at $2,000 to $3,000 on a demonstrating purposes for the students. There is alternative financing and other things that you can do. But as I said, the experiment is at a fundamental level could be done with a simple glassware. It could be done with a pot and pan in a kitchen, and it could be done at a high level experimental cost. The outputs from the results will vary, but in assembling and thinking of how you optimize a design in a low region, or if you have the experiments to analyze and think of how you take it to the future, you still have the same learning outcomes available to you. But as I said, the equipment, although high in cost, there are different financial elements, there are different design elements that the students can apply to. And in universities such as Covenant University in Nigeria, and I've seen this and I've been to them, they have developed an entire robust system of agriculture, animal, medicine, engineering around what they teach. So they build an entire industrial city. Bottled water in the Covenant region, or Abadan, comes from the university. All processed tinned food comes from the university. All paperwork comes from the university. Medical students are engaging with the community. The agricultural school is what's growing all the raw material. So the school over there in Abadan, in Covenant University in Abadan, in Nigeria, have developed this from a fundamental level, and they started building an innovative economic model to then supplement an entire industrial symbiotic system that meets all walks of life within the locality that they're established in. And there's no argument why that model can't be transferred in sub-Saharan Africa. There's no argument why that model cannot be applied in the US, in Louisiana, or in Southampton. We have different restrictions because we have guidelines and there's other things, but fundamentally, if you start somewhere, you can build it up. If we take Al Jazeera University, which we had someone represent medical from it today, engagement with society at a small level of just growing mangoes and using the waste mangoes to extract oil can generate enough avenue and enough revenue to enhance the facilities, or at least pay for some of the deficits that they were arguing earlier on. So there is different ways of trying to use innovation to bring in the student experience into dealing with real world problems in an engineering manner, in a medical manner, economic manner, in an accounting manner. And if the university interacts with the society they live in, that will be the best way to deal with it.
Okay, I tell you, Dr. Mohammed, this is very good, but let me ask Brother Mohammed Khalil. Brother Mohammed Khalil, I can't remember a year ago or more than a year ago, the professors or the academics from Cairo University, one of the leading university, they marched striking because they are not getting, I think the professor salary was $100. I remember I asked one from University of Cairo. In the morning, Professor Mohammed Khalil, we had a professor, a senior one. He used to be the dean of the medical school. So I would assume this is the highest salary. He said his salary in Sudan is like $250. He's a senior, he's an ex-dean of the medical school. Professor Habbour, you probably know him. So do you really, Professor Mohammed Khalil, you expect people paid $100 for a professor or $200 for a very senior professor like this one to really even think of watching videos like this? And in Sudan, for example, I think today or tomorrow, I'm not sure, Tomorrow we'll have the minister here on the conference, the Minister of Education. But I think today, today or tomorrow, I think 30-something universities in Sudan, they are marching to the Prime Minister. They haven't received even their salary. So we don't want to be always criticized as academics. We are not realistic, but I'm not saying you are not. You are realistic, Mohammed. But what can you, I mean, we have to look into the socio-economic impact of what we are saying here. Do you really expect people that, because in all your presentation, you focus on teacher. How come you're going to develop a teacher who will understand what you have said and he will engage the way you want him, and he's not even getting salary like in Sudan now? Egypt, they have $100. So what is your reaction to this?
Okay, so before I answer that question, so let me just have some kind of explanation, and hopefully that will help, you know, or complement Dr. Said's answer. So the presentation of Dr. Said, if you look at it from the beginning to the end, I'm going to explain it to you from the instructional design perspective. So people, they can see what's going on in here. Now, what they did at the beginning, they did needs analysis. So that needs analysis led them to identify the goals of the whole courses, the whole program. And then after that, they identified the specific objectives before they select what content going to be there and so on. Now, what they did, they implement, and they're gonna go through a process of evaluation to see the impact of their courses. So that's in simple understanding. This is one of the simplest instructional design model that people they use. They call it the ADI: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. Okay, so if people they understand that, I think they can relate. So based on the analysis at the beginning, my goals can be a little bit modified according to my needs. It's not going to be the same goals and the needs as Dr. Said goals and needs. So you can make that comparison, and then you can tell yourself, oh, if I need to do that, then I need that very expensive lab. No, it's not going to work that way. So that's one thing. The other thing about not providing the sufficient salary for the faculty. Why are you creating a distractor for the faculty from doing their job? So, and let me expand to you, because I discuss with my professor, you know, in Sudan, and what they are telling me is really, really concerning. For example, all the young faculty, rather than focusing on enhancing and try to promote themselves by doing research, by go through faculty development, they are going from one university to another university to another university in order just to provide sufficient salary that can help them to put food in the table for their family. It is not going to be fair in that situation to ask them, we need you to be excellent teacher. We need you to be excellent researcher. There's a lot of limitation there. You are not providing the infrastructure. You are not providing the environment for them to function. How then you ask for the excellence? You see what I'm trying to say here? So that's part of the issue. That's most of the countries, you know, in the North Africa, their faculty they are struggling with.
Okay, that's something. And I think Professor Mohammed and Dr. Mohammed, I think you both agree. I mean, because I travel to the Middle East, I mean, they're really, really struggling. I mean, this is in addition to the internet. And this is happening, I mean, in all the Middle East. I have been to Tunisia, to Morocco, and I think across all these regions, even in Saudi Arabia, I think the salary of staff, particularly the expat, it's just about maybe the nationals, they're getting well paid. But I will just take final question because I think we have half an hour. Any final question?
Dr. Adam seemed to have his hand up.
Let me see, because this is the problem with this gallery view. Okay, Dr. Abdul Rauf, yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much again, Professor Alam. And I've just one question which goes to Dr. Mohammed Hassan. And I just really enjoyed your very, very excellent presentation. And I have just one question, which we all know of the Malthusian population theory and of its projection of high population growth around the world to the extent that food shortage is very likely to ensue sooner or later. And because population grows exponentially, while food grows arithmetically. And of course, the theory so far has failed in its prophecy, mainly due to its failure to forecast this fast technological development, which occurred later. And actually, this has very important implications for sustainability. But my question still remains, how sustainable is technological development itself, and how resilient is it to changes caused by the staggering population increases through to 2050 and beyond, which you have just referred to in your presentation? Well, are the people who are just trusting too much trust in technology, are they too technologically deterministic?
No, if we look at the Millennium Goals and the third slide that I presented, I tried to break it down in terms of the economy cycle, in terms of the society cycle, in terms of the biosphere. The reason I wanted to do that link in terms of the 3 tiers for sustainability and then how chemical engineering takes different elements and link them together is to refer to your concept between the geometrical increase of population, the arithmetic increase of resources. We have a finite amount of elements that will expire. We have finite amount of area that we grow food in. But beyond the technology that we're trying to infuse in our students to meet the sustainable needs in terms of intensifications, in terms of reduce and reuse and upscale and all the good things that we practices, there is a social human element of sustainability that we also try to infuse in it. Demand side management, and if you look at my publications on Southampton webpage, you'll find a lot of papers on demand side management. Not the production side, but the consumer yourself. How do you behave when it comes to the eating, to the food, to the energy, to the pharmaceutical? Earlier on, when we had Professor Buckingham, who talked about Sudan specifically and the medical issues in Sudan, he talked about community medicine rather than specialized doctors. When we talked with the Ministry of Libya, I kept talking about the vocational elements rather than the specialized university teaching. These elements will then help train society to be a preventative society for diseases rather than a society that will react to getting diabetes, prevent diabetes at the onset. That's from a medical point of view. From educational view, having vocational people who will train people in terms of reusing demand side management in all walks, whether it's the health sectors, whether it's academic sectors, the food sectors, the agricultural sectors, will meet that balance. At the end of the day, we as humans are mortal and the planet is beyond our mortality. That's the issue here. So when we talk about sustainability, we need to look at it from an interactive point of view between the biosphere, as I refer to it, the society, and this new concept of economic growth and wealth generation and globalization that we developed here. But we as humans have a finite element, finite lifespan. our resources have a finite lifespan, but the planet over the years have managed to oversee and go beyond it to carry on sustaining the living principles beyond what we have. And that's where the different technologies, the different growth in humans, the industrial, the Renaissance, the different eras have happened here. So what you're asking is a very philosophical element around the core of sustainability in relationship to technology. Technology is an enabler. And what technology has done is brought advances in medicine, in food, in other things like that to help sustain the life for a longer period of time. But at the end of it, we know we are mortals. There's a limit to us. And, you know, it's the Petri dish effect again, where you have a rising population, there's a limit of growth. And once you reach that limit of growth, the population has to decrease to meet the available resources. That happens here. This is from us, but from the nature itself, it generates itself in a different way. And the simplest examples where we're talking about greenhouse gases, the carbon stored in wood in Brasilia or South America has increased by a percentage. And this is studies from different organizations in the US and in Europe, where the plants are actually absorbing and storing more carbon in relationship to the emitted levels. So the planet is mitigating itself while we, the humans, can't see this and can't understand beyond it. But our concept of sustainability is we want to leave a planet for our children to inherit, to be able to have the functionalities that we had, have the quality of the food, the quality of the energy. And unfortunately, there is a disequality or lack of number 8 and number 9 specifically within the Millennium Agenda at the moment. But this is what we're trying to do in terms of sustainability. So in future generations can upscale their technologies, upscale their behaviors to actually meet the needs of society to sustain itself. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you very, very, very much. I think we should, thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Hassan, Professor Mohammed Khalil. Thank you very much for your time. I think it's a wonderful session, and all the sessions are wonderful. But this session, I think, is very complementary to the two speakers, complement each other very well. And as I said earlier, all these sessions will be, Mervyn will finish them, we'll have them on the YouTube, and then we'll have each individual, I think the conversation will continue because each one will be separate and people can carry on this in the future. Can you all join me to say thank you very much to those? I think it was a real wonderful presentation.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.